Have you ever felt your world crumbling without warning? That someone turned off the light while you were still dreaming of the future? In a universe saturated with stories of overcoming adversity, few have the power to stop you in your tracks, make you take a deep breath and say, this could have happened to me. Camila Duarte's story doesn't begin with glory or end in tragedy. It begins with a silent farewell and ends with a powerful rebirth. This isn't simply a tale of heartbreak or business betrayal. It's the silenced cry of thousands of women who, like Camila, learn to rebuild themselves while picking up the pieces of what was once a shared life, because there are pains that aren't cried over. They're transformed, and there are women who don't give up. They reinvent themselves. This isn't just the story of a breakup, it's the story of an emotional resurrection. The morning Camila Duarte woke up alone in her bed, she could still smell Rafael's cologne lingering on the sheets, a scent that until recently meant home, security, and love. Now it was just the ghost of a presence no longer there. 3 days had passed since he left, taking with him not only his belongings, but also their shared dreams and promises of a future together. I need space, Cammy. It's not you, it's me. I need to rediscover myself, were his last words as he closed the door. Words that now echoed in Camila's mind like an endless, meaningless echo, empty of significance, but full of pain. At 32, Camila had built her life around Rafael. They had met in college, both studying business administration. The chemistry was instant, and what began as friendship soon blossomed into passionate love. After graduation, they decided to start a business together, combining Camila's culinary talent with Rafael's business vision. Thus, Authentic Flavors was born, a small catering company offering gourmet food for corporate events. For 5 years, they worked side by side, turning a small venture into a thriving business. Camila was the creative heart, developing innovative recipes and overseeing production, while Rafael handled finances, marketing, and client relationships. A perfect team, both personally and professionally. Or so she thought. The first sign that something was wrong came a month before Rafael's departure. Camila noticed subtle changes in his behavior. Hushed phone calls, late-night messages, business meetings that extended into the early morning. But whenever she tried to address the issue, Rafael minimized it, attributing it to stress from the business expansion. We're about to make the big leap, Cammy. I need to focus now more than ever, he would say, planting a distracted kiss on her forehead before immersing himself in his laptop again. The morning after his departure, Camila decided to go to the office, seeking distraction in work. Upon arrival, she found Luciana, the administrative assistant, with a concerned expression on her face. Camila, I didn't think you'd come in today. After what happened, said Luciana, avoiding direct eye contact. What are you talking about? Lu, what happened? Asked Camila, feeling a chill run down her spine. Rafael sent an email yesterday to all staff. He said he had bought your part of the company and that he was now the sole owner. He mentioned structural changes and, well, he also said you're no longer part of the team, Luciana replied, handing her a printed sheet. Camila read the email, once, twice, 3 times, unable to process the words before her. Rafael had bought her share. When? How? She had never signed any sales document. With trembling hands, she accessed the company system, only to discover that her credentials had been deactivated. Desperate, she called her lawyer, who after some investigation delivered the devastating news. 3 weeks earlier, Rafael had transferred the company to his name, using a legal power of attorney that Camila had signed months ago for banking procedures. A power that, in the wrong hands, had become the perfect weapon to strip her of everything she had built. But this is illegal, right? We can challenge it, exclaimed Camila, her voice broken by indignation and betrayal. "We can try," her lawyer responded cautiously. "But the power of attorney was drafted quite broadly. Rafael has acted within legal margins, though certainly not ethical ones. Besides, he has transferred most of the assets to a new corporate entity. It would be a long and costly legal process, with no guarantee of success." The following days were a slow-motion nightmare. Camila discovered that Rafael had not only taken the company, but had also emptied their joint bank accounts. The apartment they had just bought was mortgaged exclusively in his name, despite her contributing half of the down payment, and to top it all off, the business debts were in both their names, but the assets now belonged exclusively to Rafael. Mutual friends began to disappear one by one. Some openly sided with Rafael, while others simply vanished, uncomfortable with the drama, or perhaps fearing being caught in the middle of the battle. Social event invitations ceased. Messages of support became increasingly scarce, and in the midst of the storm, Camila found herself increasingly alone. One afternoon, while collecting the few belongings she had left at the office, Camila ran into Miguel, the head chef whom she had hired and trained herself. "I'm so sorry, Camila," he said sincerely. "Rafael has forbidden us from talking to you, but I wanted you to know that many of us here are outraged by what he's done. However—" "Don't worry, Miguel," Camila interrupted, forcing a smile. "I understand you need to protect your job. I don't hold it against you." Miguel nodded gratefully, and after a brief hug, he left. As she watched her former right-hand man in the kitchen walk away, Camila realized that she had not only lost her partner and her company, she had lost her community, her purpose, her identity. The financial situation quickly became unsustainable. Without income and with debts piling up, Camila couldn't maintain the rent on the small studio she had rented after the breakup. The call to her mother was one of the most difficult conversations of her life. "Mom, I need to come home for a while," she said in a broken voice, swallowing the pride that for years had kept her independent and self-confident. "My home will always be your home, daughter," Victoria replied without hesitation. "I'm waiting for you with open arms." And so, at 32, Camila Duarte returned to her teenage bedroom with 2 suitcases containing the remains of her adult life. The walls, still decorated with band posters and school photos, seemed to mock her broken dreams and apparent regression. The first night in her old bed, Camila could no longer contain the tears she had been holding back for weeks. She cried for the lost love, for the betrayal, for the humiliation of having been so naive. She cried for the business she had built with so much effort and passion. She cried for the life she thought she had secured and that now vanished like smoke between her fingers. Victoria, with the wisdom that only mothers possess, sat beside her, stroking her hair as when she was a child. "The pain you feel now seems infinite, my child. But remember, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And you, Camila Duarte, have always been the strongest person I know." In the darkness of that room, wrapped in her mother's embrace and a familiar scent of her childhood home, Camila couldn't yet imagine that her mother was right. She couldn't glimpse that on the other side of the pain awaited a version of herself more powerful than she had ever dreamed. She couldn't know that this fall wasn't the end of her story, but merely the dramatic first chapter of her rebirth. Because sometimes it's necessary to lose everything to discover what we're really made of. And Camila Duarte was about to discover that inside her burned a fire that no betrayal could ever extinguish. The first days in her mother's house were a blur of self-pity and tears. Camila barely left her room, spending hours staring at the ceiling, mentally reviewing every moment of her relationship with Rafael, looking for the signs she should have seen, the warnings she ignored, the moments when she should have acted differently. This mental exercise, far from healing her, only deepened her wounds. One morning, after almost 2 weeks of voluntary seclusion, Victoria entered her daughter's room with determination on her face. She opened the curtains wide, allowing sunlight to flood the space that had remained in darkness for too long. "Enough, Camilla," she said in a firm but loving voice. "I understand your pain, but I won't let you sink any deeper. Get up, take a shower, and help me prepare lunch. Aunt Sophia is coming today, and you know how much she likes your desserts." Camilla wanted to protest, but her mother's look left no room for argument. With a sigh of resignation, she got up and headed to the bathroom. The hot water falling on her body had an almost therapeutic effect, as if it were washing away not only sweat and fatigue, but also some of the accumulated pain. As she dried herself in front of the mirror, she allowed herself to observe her reflection for the first time in days. She had pronounced dark circles, lifeless hair, and an expression of defeat she didn't recognize as her own. "Who are you?" she asked herself, touching her face as if it belonged to a stranger. In the kitchen, the familiar ritual of food preparation awakened something in Camilla. Her hands, which seemed to have forgotten their purpose, suddenly remembered the pleasure of kneading, beating, creating. She decided to make a chocolate cake, her Aunt Sophia's favorite recipe, and the first one she had learned in her childhood. "Your grandmother always said that kneading is therapeutic," Victoria commented, watching as her daughter began to move with growing confidence around the kitchen. She said it was impossible to feel completely sad while creating something sweet to share. Camilla smiled weakly, remembering her grandmother Amelia, a woman who had faced countless difficulties in her life, but never lost the ability to find sweetness in the bitterest moments. "Maybe grandmother was right," she murmured, concentrating on the mixture she was beating with growing vigor. When Aunt Sophia arrived for lunch, she was genuinely surprised by the exquisite chocolate cake that crowned the table. "My God, Camilla, this is without a doubt the best dessert you've ever made," she exclaimed after the first bite. "Don't exaggerate, Aunt," Camilla replied, though she couldn't help feeling a spark of pride. "It's just the usual recipe." "No, there's something different," Sophia insisted. "It has a deeper, more intense flavor, as if you had put something more than ingredients into this dough." Victoria and Sophia exchanged knowing looks, aware that perhaps this was the first step toward Camilla's recovery. The conversation during lunch flowed naturally, gradually moving away from the topic of Raphael and focusing on family anecdotes, neighborhood news, and future plans. Sophia, who ran a small community center in the neighborhood, casually mentioned the search for someone to prepare desserts for the next fundraiser. "The budget is limited, but I thought maybe you know someone interested," she commented, glancing sideways at her niece. Camilla, who until that moment had been listening distractedly, looked up. "I could do it," she said, surprising herself with the offer. "That is, if you think my desserts are good enough." The smile that lit up Sophia's face was all the answer she needed. "Good? They're extraordinary. It would be an honor to have you for the event." Thus, almost without planning it, Camilla found an immediate purpose. During the following week, she immersed herself in preparing various desserts for the charity event. She experimented with traditional recipes, adding her personal touch, remembering the passion she had always felt for baking long before authentic flavors had diverted her toward general gastronomy. The day of the event, Camilla arranged her creations on a simple but elegantly decorated table. She had prepared chocolate brownies with nuts, fruit tarts, alfajores filled with dulce de leche, cupcakes decorated with edible flowers, and as a centerpiece, a tres leches cake with salted caramel topping. To her surprise, the desserts not only sold quickly, but also generated a small crowd of admirers. One woman in particular, Doña Carmen, a neighborhood resident for more than 4 decades, approached Camilla with eyes bright with excitement. Child, these are the best sweets I've tasted in my life, she declared with conviction. Do you have a business? I'd like to order some for my grandson's birthday next week. Camila hesitated, feeling a mixture of gratitude for the compliment and sadness for the reality of her current situation. No, I don't have a business. Not right now, she replied with a touch of melancholy. Well, you should, exclaimed Doña Carmen firmly. You have a gift, and it would be a crime not to share it with the world. That night, while helping clean, up after the event, the idea began to germinate in Camila's mind. What if she could really make baking her new beginning? She wouldn't need a large initial investment. She could start from her mother's kitchen with small orders. It was a possibility she had never seriously considered before, always focused on expanding authentic flavors in the direction Raphael considered most profitable. In the following days, Camila began to explore the idea with greater determination. She researched wholesale ingredient prices, analyzed current trends in baking, and studied local regulations for selling home-prepared foods. Victoria observed this rebirth with quiet satisfaction, offering support, but allowing her daughter to navigate this new territory at her own pace. The first official order came thanks to Doña Carmen, who indeed ordered a dozen cupcakes and a small cake for her grandson's birthday. Camila worked meticulously on these products, aware that her reputation depended on this first impression. When she delivered the order, Doña Carmen was so impressed that she immediately made a post on her social media, sharing photos of the beautiful pastries and tagging Camila. This simple gesture generated a domino effect. Soon, Doña Carmen's friends began contacting Camila for their own events. Recognizing the need for a more formal digital presence, Camila created an Instagram account under the name Dona Cami, Doces de Verdade, Doña Cami, True Sweets. With the help of Paula, a former college classmate who worked as a freelance photographer, she managed to obtain professional images of her creations. Paula, moved by Camila's story and admiring her resilience, offered her services in exchange for some cakes for her family. The social media strategy was simple but effective. Camila not only shared photos of her desserts, but also the creation, process, the quality ingredients she used, and small personal anecdotes that emotionally connected with her growing audience. She didn't mention Raphael or the betrayal, but occasionally hinted that she was in a process of personal reconstruction, which generated a current of empathy and support. A turning point occurred when Marta, a well-known local influencer with more than 50,000 followers, happened to try Camila's brownies at a gathering. She was so impressed that she immediately contacted Dona Cami for a collaboration. The video they made together, where Camila taught how to prepare her famous brownies while subtly sharing her philosophy of finding sweetness in the bitter moments of life, quickly went viral, reaching more than 100,000 views in 3 days. The effect was immediate. Orders multiplied, forcing Camila to establish a more organized system. Victoria, seeing the growth of her daughter's venture, offered to transform her late husband's old study into a small professional kitchen. With some savings she had kept intact even during her financial crisis, Camila acquired basic but quality equipment. As orders increased, Camila began to feel the pressure of time. She worked from dawn until late at night, preparing dough, baking, decorating, packaging, and occasionally personally delivering the most important orders. Although physical fatigue was evident, there was a new light in her eyes, a renewed purpose that acted as inexhaustible fuel. One afternoon, while preparing an especially large order for a wedding, she received an unexpected message. It was Luciana, her former assistant at Authentic Flavors. "Hello, Camila," the message said. "I've been following your new venture on social media. I'm impressed and honestly not surprised. You were always the real talent behind the company. I wanted you to know that Raphael is having problems. Without your creativity and leadership in the kitchen, the quality has notably decreased. Several important clients have canceled contracts. I shouldn't be telling you this, but I felt you deserved to know. If you ever need help with Donna Cami, count me in." Camila read the message several times, expecting to feel the sweet satisfaction of revenge. However, what she experienced was something completely different, a profound sense of liberation. For the first time since the betrayal, she realized that she no longer needed the validation that would come from Rafael's failure. Her current success wasn't defined by the contrast with her ex's failure, but by her own merit, effort, and talent. That night, while applying the final details to a wedding cake that represented her most ambitious work to date, Camila reflected on the journey she had embarked on in just 3 months. From the bottom of the pit to the light, from victim to creator, from betrayal to self-sufficiency. The path to complete healing was still long, but for the first time since Rafael's departure, Camila felt she was moving in the right direction. She no longer constantly looked back, lamenting what was lost. Now she looked ahead, anticipating with enthusiasm what was to come. And what was to come was bigger and sweeter than she had ever imagined. The Instagram account of Donna Cami, Dosis de Verdade, reached 10,000 followers exactly 4 months after its creation. What had begun as a small venture born of necessity and pain was rapidly becoming a recognized brand in her community and beyond. Camila celebrated this milestone by preparing a special box of macarons that she raffled among her followers, a small token of gratitude to those who had supported her rebirth. The improvised kitchen in Victoria's house was beginning to feel small. Despite expansions and adaptations, it was becoming evident that Donna Cami needed its own space to continue growing. However, the idea of renting or buying a commercial space still seemed a distant dream, considering that Camila was just stabilizing financially after the debacle with Rafael. One Saturday afternoon, while delivering an order of cupcakes for a corporate celebration at one of the most prestigious hotels in the city, Camila had an encounter that would change the course of her story. Eduardo Montero, a businessman known for his investments in culinary startups, was captivated by the delicate red fruit cupcakes that Camila had prepared for the event. "These are extraordinary," commented Eduardo, approaching Camila as she arranged the final details on the dessert table. "There's a complexity of flavors that I rarely find in commercial baking. Do you have a card? I'd like to know more about your company." Camila, who now always carried simple but elegant business cards, handed him one, briefly explaining the essence of Donna Cami. She mentioned her philosophy of using quality ingredients, traditional techniques with modern touches, and the commitment to put truth in each creation. Eduardo listened with genuine interest, asking pertinent questions about her creative process, her cost structure, and her expansion plans. Camila responded honestly, without exaggerating her achievements, but also without diminishing her ambitions. "You've built something special here," concluded Eduardo. "Not just because of the product, quality, but because of the story behind it. The market is saturated with culinary ventures, but few have such an authentic soul as yours. I'd like to invite you for coffee next week. I think we could explore some interesting possibilities." Although intrigued by the proposal, Camila kept her expectations moderate. She had learned the hard way not to blindly trust grandiose promises. However, after researching Eduardo's background and consulting with some contacts in the industry, she accepted the invitation. The meeting took place in a small but sophisticated cafe in the city center. Eduardo arrived punctually, dressed with casual elegance that reflected his status without being intimidating. After exchanging some courtesies, he directly addressed the reason for the meeting. "I've been following your Instagram since our encounter, and I've also done some research on you," Eduardo began. "Your organic growth is impressive, especially considering that you operate from a home kitchen and without significant advertising, investment, But what has impressed me most is the loyalty you generate. Your customers don't just return, they become passionate ambassadors of your brand. That can't be bought with money. Camilla nodded, recognizing the validity of the observation. The community she had built around Donna Kami was, without a doubt, her most valuable asset. I'll be direct, Eduardo continued. I'm interested in investing in your business. I believe you have the potential to turn Donna Kami into a national reference brand in artisanal baking, not just because of the product quality, but because of the values you represent: authenticity, resilience, transformation. Camilla felt a mixture of excitement and caution. The proposal was tempting, but the memories of her experience with Rafael still weighed on her conscience. I appreciate your interest, Eduardo, she responded calmly. But I must be honest. My previous experience with partners hasn't been positive. I lost a company I built with my effort due to the betrayal of someone I fully trusted. You'll understand that I'm now extremely cautious with any type of association. Eduardo looked at her with renewed respect. Your honesty is refreshing, and I completely understand your reservations. I'm not proposing to be your partner, Camilla. I'm offering to be an investor. There's a fundamental difference. I'm not seeking control over your business, but to support its growth in exchange for a financial return in the future. You would continue to be the sole owner and the decisive voice in all operational and creative matters. Over the next 2 hours, Eduardo detailed his investment proposal. He offered sufficient capital for Camilla to establish her own atelier, professionally equipped and strategically located. In exchange, he would receive a percentage of future profits for a determined period, after which Camilla could buy back his participation if she wished. I'm not interested in controlling your business, Eduardo explained. My goal is to support passionate and talented entrepreneurs who need a boost to reach their maximum potential. I've helped launch more than 20 culinary startups in the last 5 years, and my greatest satisfaction is seeing them flourish while maintaining their original essence. Before ending the meeting, Eduardo gave Camilla a folder with all the detailed information, including references from other entrepreneurs he had worked with. Take all the time you need to review it, he said. Consult with lawyers, financial advisors, whoever you consider necessary. My offer doesn't have an immediate expiration date. During the following weeks, Camilla immersed herself in an exhaustive research process. She contacted several of the entrepreneurs mentioned by Eduardo, all of whom confirmed his integrity and the added value he had brought to their businesses. She consulted with a lawyer specialized in business law who meticulously reviewed the proposed contract, suggesting some modifications that Eduardo accepted without hesitation. She also spoke at length with her mother, who, after overcoming her initial skepticism, recognized the opportunity that the proposal represented. You've built this from scratch, with your own hands and your own heart, Victoria reflected. Perhaps this is the universe giving back some of what was unjustly taken from you. Just make sure that this time, every fine print in the contract protects what is yours. Finally, after almost a month of deliberation, Camilla accepted Eduardo's proposal. With the capital secured, she immediately began the search for the perfect location to establish the Donna Kami atelier.